I must control my mind to change my life. That's the truth. That's the core of everything, because life isn't happening out there, it's happening in here. It's not the events, it's not the circumstances, it's not the people. It's the meaning you attach to them, the story you keep telling yourself, the pattern of thought you've allowed to dominate your life. And if I don't take charge of my mind will take charge of me. Think about it. Every single day, you're bombarded with thoughts, emotions, memories, doubts, fears, and most people live like prisoners of those thoughts. They believe whatever their mind tells them. I'm not good enough. I don't have what it takes. I'll never be successful. I'm stuck. They accept these lies as truth, and that becomes their reality. But listen, the mind is not who you are. The mind is a tool. And when you learn to master that tool, when you control it instead of letting it control you, you create the life you want. We all know what it feels like to let the mind run wild. You wake up and immediately start thinking of problems, failures, fears. And then you wonder why your day feels heavy, why you have no energy, why you don't take action. It's because your focus has been hijacked. The mind left unchecked is like a wild horse. It will drag you in directions you never wanted to go. But the moment you grab the reins, the moment you decide no more, I choose what I think, I choose what I focus on, I choose the meaning I give to my experiences, everything begins to shift. Changing your life doesn't start with changing your environment, your job, or the people around you. It starts with changing what's going on inside your head. Because you can place a person in the perfect situation, give them the resources, the support, the opportunity, and if their mind is poisoned with doubt, they will sabotage it all. But you can place another person in the harshest conditions, give them nothing, and if their mind is filled with determination, belief, and vision, they'll find a way to rise. The difference isn't circumstance, it's mindset. When I say I must control my mind, I mean I must decide what I feed it every single day, because your mind is like a garden. If you don't plant seeds of possibility, hope, gratitude, and strength, weeds will grow automatically. Doubt, fear, negativity. And too many people spend their lives walking through a garden overtaken by weeds, wondering why they feel stuck. The answer is simple. You must take control of what gets planted. And control doesn't mean you'll never feel fear, anger, or doubt again. It means you don't let those emotions drive the car. You acknowledge them, but you don't surrender to them. You train yourself moment by moment to shift focus, to ask better questions, to demand more from yourself than your excuses. Because if I can control my mind, I can control my emotions. And if I can control my emotions, I can control my actions. And if I can control my actions, I can change my destiny. The mind will always whisper, stay safe, don't take risks, you might fail. But you must speak louder. You must say, I am stronger than my fear, I am greater than my doubt. I control what I believe and I choose to believe in my power. Because when your mind believes, your body follows, your energy shifts. You begin to act differently, show up differently, demand more from yourself and from life. So I tell myself every day, I must control my mind to change my life. Not once, not when it's convenient, not when things are easy. Every single day. Because the quality of my life is the quality of my thoughts. If I want an extraordinary life, I need extraordinary thoughts, extraordinary beliefs, extraordinary focus. And that is my responsibility. No one else can do it for me. Your mind is a tool, not your master. That is the foundation of transformation, the very first step toward breaking free from the invisible chains that hold so many people back. Most people don't even realize that the majority of their struggles come not from the outside world, but from their own inner dialogue, the constant chatter in their head that tells them what they can and cannot do. The truth is, the mind is designed to protect, to keep you safe, to conserve energy. Left unchecked, it will pull you into fear, hesitation, self-doubt, and comfort zones that feel secure but are actually cages. If you don't step into the driver's seat and consciously direct your mind, you end up living a life designed by your limitations instead of your possibilities. The most successful, fulfilled, and alive people in the world aren't those who never felt fear or doubt. They're the ones who learned to master their mind and make it work for them rather than against them. Imagine your mind like a powerful piece of technology. A computer, for example, doesn't decide what program runs. It executes whatever software is installed. If the software is outdated or full of viruses, it will slow down, crash, or sabotage the work you try to do. Your thoughts are that software. If your mind is running on programs like "I'm not enough," "I'll never succeed," or "people like me don't get those opportunities," it doesn't matter how much potential you have, you'll keep hitting invisible walls. But when you take control of your thoughts, when you rewrite the code with beliefs like "I am capable," "I will find a way," "I control what happens next," you unleash the true power of your mind. The computer starts running at full capacity. Suddenly, opportunities that seemed out of reach become visible, risks that once felt terrifying become manageable, and life begins to move in the direction you've chosen instead of the one your fears dictated. The danger of not controlling your mind is that it will automatically default. Negativity. Studies show the human brain has a natural negativity bias. It remembers painful experiences more vividly. It anticipates problems faster than it imagines solutions. It worries about threats more than it celebrates progress. This was useful thousands of years ago when survival meant spotting danger quickly. But in modern life, it becomes a trap. If you don't consciously redirect your thoughts, your mind will magnify problems, replay failures, and whisper reasons why you shouldn't try again. That's why so many people stay stuck. They're not lazy, they're not incapable. They've just allowed their minds to become their masters. Their thoughts are running the show, and those thoughts are rooted in fear, doubt, and the need for certainty. But here's the breakthrough. The mind obeys the commands you give it. If you practice taking charge, if you decide to treat your thoughts as choices rather than facts, you begin to reclaim power. You wake up, and instead of letting your first thought be "I'm tired," or "this is going to be hard," you train yourself to say "I'm alive, I have energy, I'm ready." And at first, your mind resists. It tells you it's not true, that you're just pretending. But repetition is the mother of mastery. The more you direct your thoughts, the more the mind adapts. Just like a muscle, it gets stronger in the direction you train it. Before long, those empowering thoughts stop feeling forced and start feeling natural. The tool is now being used properly, and your life starts to reflect the shift. Think about the greatest athletes, leaders, and creators. Yes, they have talent and skill, but more importantly, they've mastered the inner game. They know how to use their mind instead of being used by it. When pressure is high, when failure stares them in the face, when everyone else is panicking, they remain calm, focused, and relentless. Why? Because they've conditioned their minds to respond with courage, not fear. They've learned to silence the voice of limitation and amplify the voice of possibility. That's not luck, and it's not genetics. It's discipline. It's repetition. It's the daily decision to say, "I am in control of my mind, and therefore, I am in control of my life." When you understand this, you stop blaming circumstances, stop waiting for luck, stop living like a victim of thoughts that were never designed to lead you to greatness. You recognize that every thought you entertain either builds you or breaks you. Every moment you choose whether to strengthen the muscle of fear or the muscle of faith. Every time you decide, "This thought does not serve me, I choose a better one," you reclaim a piece of your life. And piece by piece, thought by thought, belief by belief, you begin to step into the person you were always meant to be. Focus creates reality, and this is one of the most powerful truths you can ever grasp. Whatever you consistently focus on grows stronger, and whatever you ignore withers away. Your life at this moment is a direct reflection of what you've been choosing to focus on day after day. If you've been consumed with problems, failures, and what's missing, then your reality feels heavy, stressful, and limited. But if you've been focusing on possibilities, progress, and what you already have, then your life feels abundant, exciting, and full of momentum. Focus is the magnifying glass of your mind, and whatever you point it at becomes bigger, clearer, and more dominant in your life. Most people don't realize this. They think their circumstances are shaping their emotions, but in truth, their focus is shaping their experience of those circumstances. Two people can go through the exact same event and have completely different lives afterward simply because of what they chose to focus on. One person loses their job and focuses on the pain, the unfairness, the uncertainty, and as a result, they spiral into fear and inaction. Another person loses the same job but focuses on the opportunity to reinvent themselves, to finally chase the dream they've been putting off, and they use the setback as fuel to create a new life. The event was identical. The outcomes were worlds apart. Why? Because focus creates reality. What you decide to lock your attention on determines how you feel, what meaning you give the moment, and ultimately what actions you take. The mind has an unlimited amount of data it could pay attention to, but it filters based on what you repeatedly tell it to look for. This is why when you think about buying a certain car, you suddenly start seeing that model everywhere. The cars were always there, but your focus wasn't tuned to notice them until now. Life works the same way. If you focus on failure, you'll start noticing evidence everywhere that confirms you're not good enough. If you focus on growth, you'll begin to notice resources, opportunities, and connections that were invisible before. It's not that the world changed, it's that your focus did. And when your focus shifts, your reality shifts with it. Think of focus like sunlight. Sunlight warms everything it touches, but when you concentrate it through a magnifying glass, it becomes so powerful it can start a fire. Your attention is the same. Spread out and unfocused, it gets diluted by distractions, worries, and meaningless details. But when you channel it toward what you want, it becomes unstoppable. It burns through obstacles and creates the results you desire. Yet most people spend their lives scattering their focus, letting it bounce from fear to social media to problems that don't even matter. They wonder why they feel stuck, anxious, or unfulfilled, but the answer is simple. They're giving their mental energy to the wrong places. The quality of your life is directly tied to where your focus goes. If you focus on what you can't control, you feel powerless. If you focus on what you can control, you feel empowered. If you focus on what's missing, you feel empty. If you focus on what you already have, you feel grateful. If you focus on what you fear, you hesitate. If you focus on what you want, you move with determination. This is why changing your focus is often all it takes to change how you feel in an instant. A person can be in the same room with the same people, the same conditions, but the second they shift their focus from what's wrong to what's possible, everything inside them changes. Their energy rises, their confidence grows, their mind opens up to solutions that seemed invisible just moments before. Training your focus is a daily discipline. It means noticing when your mind drifts to negativity and consciously redirecting it. It means asking better questions when problems arise instead of replaying the same fears. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" you ask, "How can I use this? What's the lesson here? What's the opportunity hidden in this?" Those questions redirect your focus from victimhood to growth, and that single shift can transform your life. The more you practice, the more natural it becomes. Soon, instead of dwelling on obstacles, your default reaction is to scan for solutions. Instead of replaying past mistakes, your mind focuses on how you can do better next time. Instead of feeling paralyzed by the size of your dream, you focus on the next step you can take today. When you focus on the right things consistently, momentum builds. Progress that once felt impossible suddenly becomes inevitable. Doors open that you didn't even know existed. People show up at the right time. Energy rises in your body because your attention is no longer being drained by fear and distraction. And it doesn't mean challenges disappear. They're still there, but they no longer define you because your focus is locked on something greater. You see challenges as stepping stones, not stop signs. And over time, your entire life transforms, not because the outside world magically shifted, but because you chose to take control of the inner world. The lens through which you experience everything. Emotions follow thoughts, and this is the chain reaction that builds or destroys every human life. Most people don't realize that the way they feel every single day isn't random. It isn't something that happens to them without cause. Every emotion you experience, fear, joy, anger, love, gratitude, hopelessness, starts with what you choose to focus on and what you choose to think about. The moment a thought enters your mind, it creates an image, a meaning, and that meaning triggers an emotion in your body. If you think, "I'm not good enough, I'll never make it," that thought immediately generates emotions of discouragement, sadness, maybe even depression. If you think, "I can handle this, I have what it takes, I will figure it out," that thought sparks feelings of strength, confidence, and determination. The pattern is simple but powerful. Thoughts create emotions, emotions drive actions, and actions shape destiny. If you want to feel differently, you cannot wait for life to change. You must change what you think. Think about a time when you were feeling incredible, when you were confident, on fire, unstoppable. That emotional state didn't just appear from nowhere. It came from what was happening in your mind. Maybe you focused on your progress, on your wins, on your vision for the future. And as those thoughts filled your head, emotions of empowerment followed. On the other hand, remember a time when you felt defeated and hopeless. Chances are your thoughts were locked onto everything that was wrong, every failure, every reason it couldn't work. And the emotions that followed made you sink deeper. This is why controlling your thoughts isn't optional if you want to master your life. Because if you don't, the emotions that flow from those uncontrolled thoughts will take over your actions, and your actions will reinforce the cycle. Your body is wired to follow the lead of your thoughts. If you picture yourself failing before you even begin, your body responds with hesitation, lower energy, and procrastination. But if you fill your mind with images of succeeding, overcoming, and rising, your body responds with power, with movement, with action. It's not magic. It's psychology and physiology working together. Athletes know this when they visualize victory. They run the race in their mind, and the emotions of certainty, focus, and determination flood their body before they even step onto the track. By the time the real moment comes, their emotions are primed to produce their best performance. The same principle applies to every area of life. If you allow your thoughts to spiral into negativity, your emotions will follow, and those emotions will keep you stuck. If you feed your mind empowering thoughts, your emotions will align and push you forward. The danger is that most people don't even notice the link between their thoughts and emotions. They say, "I feel sad today," or "I feel anxious," as if it just happened randomly. But if they paused and paid attention, they'd realize they were replaying a painful memory, imagining a worst case scenario, or telling themselves a disempowering story. The mind speaks and the body listens. The good news is that you can interrupt this cycle at any moment. By catching yourself in a negative thought and replacing it with a better one, you immediately shift the emotion that follows. It doesn't always feel instant at first, because your old patterns are strong, but with repetition, your body begins to respond faster. Soon, instead of being dragged into fear or doubt by default thoughts, you find yourself automatically creating emotions of strength, hope, and resilience. Emotions are fuel. They either ignite you or they drain you. And the type of fuel you run on is completely up to what thoughts you put into your tank. If you keep feeding yourself thoughts of limitation, your emotional fuel will be weak and toxic. You'll struggle to move forward because your emotions are heavy and draining. But if you feed yourself thoughts of possibility, belief, and gratitude, your emotional fuel becomes powerful. You move faster, with more energy, more passion, more courage, because the emotions driving you are positive and empowering. That's why some people seem unstoppable even when they don't have all the answers. They've mastered the art of creating the right emotions through the right thoughts. The chain reaction works in both directions, which means the smallest change in thought can create a massive change in emotion, which creates a massive change in behavior. Imagine waking up and instead of thinking, I'm exhausted, today is going to be stressful, you deliberately think, I'm alive, I'm grateful, today I will attack with energy. Those two different thoughts will create two entirely different emotional states. One leads to dragging through the day, the other leads to charging through it. And over time, the compounding effect of these repeated choices in thought and emotion completely changes your identity. You stop being someone who reacts to life with fear and negativity, and become someone who responds to life with strength and optimism. Every breakthrough in life begins with mastering this link. When you understand that you don't have to wait for your emotions to change, that you don't have to hope for motivation to show up, but that you can deliberately create the emotions you need by controlling the thoughts you feed your mind, you become unstoppable. The emotions that once held you back, fear, insecurity, hesitation, lose their grip because you've cut them off at the source. And in their place, you generate emotions of courage, confidence, and certainty that drive you forward no matter the challenge. Your mind is a garden, and what grows inside of it is determined by what you choose to plant and what you choose to nurture. Every single day, seeds are being sown into your mind, seeds of belief, seeds of doubt, seeds of strength, seeds of fear, seeds of gratitude, seeds of resentment. The thoughts you entertain, the conversations you allow, the content you consume, the words you repeat to yourself, these are all seeds. If you don't take conscious control over this process, weeds will grow automatically. Doubt, insecurity, negativity, fear. They don't need permission. They don't need your invitation. They sprout on their own when the soil is left unattended. That's why so many people wake up years later realizing their minds have become overgrown with weeds, full of patterns and beliefs that choke the possibility out of their lives. The garden of your mind does not care what gets planted. It will return to you whatever you consistently put into it. If you plant thoughts of limitation, you will harvest a life of limitation. If you plant thoughts of growth and possibility, you will harvest strength, creativity, and progress. This is not philosophy. It's reality. Look at anyone who has created extraordinary results in their life. They didn't get there by accident. They trained their minds daily, planting the seeds of vision, belief, resilience, and gratitude. Over time, those seeds grew into a forest of empowering habits and unstoppable momentum. The opposite is just as true. People who stay stuck in mediocrity didn't arrive there overnight. They allowed seeds of fear, doubt, and self-pity to take root. They never pulled the weeds, never planted better seeds, and eventually their mental garden became a place where nothing extraordinary could grow. The danger of neglecting your mental garden is that weeds don't just sit quietly. They spread. A single thought of "I can't," repeated enough times multiplies until it infects every area of your life. Suddenly it's not just "I can't succeed in business." It becomes "I can't have the body I want." "I can't find the relationship I deserve." "I can't change who I am." That one seed has now spread like ivy, wrapping itself around your confidence and suffocating your potential. But the same is true in the opposite direction. A single empowering thought like "I am capable," planted and nurtured every day, begins to multiply. It starts influencing how you show up in your career, how you handle challenges, how you connect with people. Soon, your entire life is being nourished by the fruit of that one seed. Tending to the garden of your mind requires daily effort. You cannot plant once and expect the harvest to last forever. Just like a real garden, weeds will keep trying to grow. Negative thoughts will keep trying to creep in. Fear will knock at the door again and again. The difference between those who thrive and those who struggle is not that one group never experiences negativity. It's that they recognize it quickly and pull it out before it takes root. They refuse to water weeds. They refuse to give energy to thoughts that disempower them. Instead, they water the seeds of possibility. They read empowering books, listen to uplifting voices, practice gratitude, visualize their goals, and feed their minds with images of the life they want to live. Every act of watering these seeds strengthens them until they grow too strong for weeds to choke. The most successful people are gardeners of their minds. They don't leave their mental soil up to chance. They know that whatever is planted there will eventually become their reality, so they deliberately choose the seeds, even when it's inconvenient, even when it's uncomfortable. They remind themselves that just as a farmer must get up early, pull weeds, and water crops before the harvest comes, they too must do the inner work long before the outer results show up. And when the harvest does arrive, when their lives begin to overflow with success, fulfillment, and impact hits, because they planted with intention and protected their garden with discipline, you have to decide what kind of garden you want your mind to be. If you want beauty, strength, abundance, you cannot afford to let weeds take over. You cannot afford to let every negative voice or fear-based thought plant itself in your soil. You must guard the gate, choose your seeds, and nurture them daily. Because the garden will grow either way. The question is whether it will grow into a place that lifts you higher or a place that holds you back. Daily discipline is the key, because controlling your mind is not something you do once. It is something you must do again and again until it becomes who you are. Most people wait for motivation to show up. They wait until they feel like taking control. And that's why they live their lives at the mercy of their emotions and circumstances. But the truth is, if you want to master your mind, if you want to create a life of power and purpose, you cannot rely on fleeting feelings. You must build habits. Discipline is the bridge between where you are and where you want to be. It is the daily decision to take control of your focus, your thoughts, and your actions, no matter how you feel in the moment. And over time, discipline creates freedom, because the habits you build take over where willpower alone might fail. Controlling your mind requires consistency because the old patterns are strong. You've spent years, maybe even decades, training your brain to think in a certain way. You've built neural pathways of fear, doubt, procrastination, and negativity. If you think of the mind like a trail in the forest, the paths you've walked the most are wide and easy to follow. The moment you try to create a new path of empowering thoughts, it feels difficult because the ground is unbroken, the trail is not yet clear. That's why people give up too soon. They expect change after a day, a week, or a single motivational burst. But the truth is, every time you practice the discipline of redirecting your thoughts, you are carving that new trail a little deeper. Eventually, it becomes the dominant path, the one your mind naturally takes, and the old trail becomes overgrown. That transformation only happens with discipline. Repeated daily discipline means having rituals that prime your mind for success before the world has a chance to distract you. It might be starting your morning with gratitude, reminding yourself of what you already have instead of what you lack. It might be affirmations that condition your mind to believe in your power and potential. It might be visualization, where you picture your goals so clearly that your brain begins to accept them as inevitable. These practices are not empty routines, they are acts of training. Just as an athlete trains their body every day to be strong and ready, you must train your mind every day to focus on what empowers you. Without these rituals, the weeds of negativity will take over by default, because the world is constantly trying to pull your attention toward fear, comparison, and doubt. Discipline is also about what you refuse to allow into your mind. Just like a gardener doesn't only water plants, but also pulls weeds and protects the soil, you must guard your thoughts against influences that weaken you. This might mean limiting your time around people who constantly complain, cutting back on media that fills you with fear, or catching yourself when your inner voice begins to sabotage your confidence. Discipline isn't only about what you do, it's about what you don't allow. Every time you refuse to water a negative thought, you strengthen your ability to control your mind. Every time you stop yourself from feeding energy to an excuse, you reinforce the path of empowerment. This requires vigilance, and vigilance is only possible through discipline over time. Daily discipline builds identity. At first, you may feel like someone who is trying to control their mind, trying to think better thoughts, trying to stay focused. But as the days stack, as the repetitions accumulate, you begin to see yourself differently. You no longer think of yourself as someone struggling with negative thoughts. You see yourself as someone who masters their thoughts. That shift in identity is where real transformation happens, because once something becomes who you are, discipline no longer feels like effort, it feels like alignment. Just as brushing your teeth is automatic because you've done it daily your entire life, controlling your focus becomes natural because you've trained yourself to do it every day without question. The truth is, discipline is freedom. It is freedom from the trap of living by impulse, freedom from the cycle of starting strong and giving up when it gets hard, freedom from the emotions that used to control you. When you have daily discipline, you don't need to wait for the perfect conditions or the right mood. You simply do what must be done because it is who you are. And when you live that way long enough, your life becomes a reflection of that consistency. Success is never built on occasional effort. It is built on daily discipline.